So the other day we started with trigonometry. I really like maths, so we started with trigonometry. I've I've placed everything on YouTube. What's the name? PSA.
Sir.
I've placed everything on YouTube. I mean you're in class, but if you still want to go and revise, I've placed everything on YouTube. When we studied, everything we've been studying, so you
Yes.
can go and have a look at it. So today we are continuing with the trick we started the other time. Now, the other time we spoke about the trig ratios, and what I'm doing is I'm incorporating both the commas and the elective mass so that you cover everything under this thing. You wouldn't have to go and study commas and trig and all those things. So I want to cover the little things omitted in the elective mass so that you can benefit from it. Now, we said we are going to look at what do you call it, the trig ratios of a general angle, and basically we are going to use the Cartesian plane to do this, and that will help us understand a lot of things here. What we are doing is so as to so that when you are given a question, for instance, when you are solving a trig ratio question, whether being cosine, whether being sine, whether being tangent, you should be able to, you always wouldn't should have a calculator before you get some figures right. And right from the word go, you should be able to know that okay, when it's cos 90, the answer should be either negative or positive, depending on all the things I'm going to teach you. When it is sine 180, it should be this, it should be negative. If you don't even know the correct figure, you should be able to tell that this is going to be negative, this is going to be positive. So we are going to use the quadrants and all these things to teach us. Now the three main trigonometric ratios may be positive or negative. So we are going to consider the three main, or any of them may be either positive or negative. That you already know. Depending on the quadrant in which they lie and their values related to their angles. So we are going to consider all those things. So the three main trigonometric ratios may either be positive or negative. And that will depend on the quadrant in which they lie and their values relating to the corresponding acute angles with the x-axis. So I'm going to talk about all these things. The signs of the ratios, normally we classify them or we call them the cast. The cast means the C, we always let the C stand for cos or cosine. The A stands for all, S stands for sine, and T stands for tangent. I'm going to explain all these things. And in the first quadrant, you are going to, you know, definitely, and in this case, you are going to consider the movement in an anti-clockwise direction, anti-clockwise direction, angles. That is what we consider. We don't consider in a clockwise direction. We consider in an anti-clockwise direction. However, they are still the same. So we are going to consider all these things. We are going to consider the first angle, the first quadrant. We are going to consider the second quadrant. We are going to consider the third quadrant and the fourth quadrant. So we are going to consider all these things. We are going to consider all these things, then at least we will arrive at something better. So in trigonometry, positive angles are measured in anti-clockwise direction from the positive x direction, starting from 0 to 330. So in trig, positive angles are normally measured from, they are measured in the anti-clockwise direction. I don't know why my eye is shaking like that. That is it. So that is it. So we are going to, so we are still on our trig ratios. So for instance, we are going to use a quadrant to establish one or two things. And we are just doing this so that you get a basis of trig, how it works. So that anytime you are solving a trig question, right from onset, you don't even have to, you wouldn't need a calculator to be able to tell you that the angle I'm distance should be positive or should be negative. You should be able to know all distance. Now, here, yeah. So here, you can say, when you talk of this, when you have a Cartesian, this one is always the x axis and this one is the y. Here, here is always positive. Here is the negative, the y negative. and here is positive, you know, and here is x negative. Already we know this. And you know, per angle, this will be our first quadrant. So we are moving in anti-clockwise direction. So this is our first quadrant. This is our quadrant 2. This will be our third quadrant, and this will be our fourth quadrant. That is it. Now we are going to use the cast system. Now when we say the cast, then we are saying that here is cos, here is all. I'll explain all these things. Here is sine, and here is tan. And that's what it means. You bear with me that from here to here is one quadrant, and from here to here, you bear with me that from here to here is 90. It's start from 0 to 90 in this quadrant. You bear with me that, or you understand that here is 90. Now from here to here, you know it's 180. And you know what? After from here, when we move from 180, we move into 270. So from here to here is 270. Then from here to here, you know we are talking about 360. Coming back to 360. Already we know this. So in the first quadrant, we assume that we are talking about angles that ranges from between an acute angle. When we say acute angles are angles that's between 0 and 90. So you know here we are talking about acute angle 1 to 90 degrees here. You bear with me that here we'll be talking about a certain 90 degrees to 180 degrees. A certain 90 degrees to 180. So this one, here the angle is greater than 90 degrees to 180. Here too, we are going to talk about a certain from 180 to a certain 270. Certain 270 degrees. And here we are talking about 270. 270 to 360. So you can now say yes, 90, yes, 0, yes, 90. Yes, 180. You can talk about 180 here. You can talk about 270 here. Now, this is the interpretation of everything I've written here. Come on. So, looking at this, we are just trying to say that here, when I say then we are trying to say that here, all the trig ratios will be positive. That is to say that if you have any angle ranging from 0 to 90, any trig ratio you are going to use, you should be able to get a positive answer. Let me give you an example. For instance, if you you have your calculators around, when you check cos 40, the answer should be positive. Sin 40, the answer should be positive. What do you call it? Tan 40, the answer should be positive. Cosec 40, the answer should be positive. Any trig ratio, now we are even considering the 3. Any of the trig ratios in the first quadrant, any angle between 0 and 90, it should give you a positive answer. I hope you are getting it to that point. Do you get it to that point?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we are saying that in the first quadrant, we have if P is the general angle, let's say the angle here is P. The angle here should be greater than 0 and less than 90. Here too, the angle here should be greater than 90 and less than 180. This I've already explained all these things. So here, any angle you type here, any of the trig ratios you are going to use, it should be 0. It should be positive. I hope I've made myself clear. So if you have the calculators, you can check with any of the angles. That should be between 0 and 90. Whether sine 90, whether sine 80, whether sine tan 80, all should give you a positive answer. I hope I've made myself clear. Have I made myself clear? Because if already you bear with me that here, if you're looking at this quadrant, you bear with me that here the S values here are positive and here is positive. So this quadrant is positive, positive. But apart from this quadrant, all the quadrants here too is negative, negative. And here is positive or here is negative, here is positive, negative, positive, negative. Now any angle you type here or any angle here, when you use the trig ratio, you should be able to get a positive answer. Now let's come to quadrant 2. In a quadrant 2, any angle that falls within quadrant 2, if you are using a sign, the angle will be positive. If it is a sign, if it's a sign, it should be positive. But if you use the cos, if you use the tan, it will be negative. So here only sign ratio should give you a positive answer here. You can check with your calculator. So type sine 120. Give me sine 120. Give it to me and let me write sine 120. What was the answer? Sine 120. Sine 120.
Root 3 all over 2.
Guess what?
Root 3 all over 2.
Okay, but the answer is positive, right?
Yes, sir.
Now check cos and tan for me. Cos and tan of the same value. Cos and tan of the same value.
So please, the cos is a negative 0.5.
Okay, and the tan too is there. The tan too is the negative, right?
So it's negative 3.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. Now, when you come here to any angle that is greater than 180 but less than greater than 180 but less than 270 should also be, what do you call it? If it is tan, then it should be positive. But apart from tan, if you use cos or sine, it should be negative. So you can check tan 185. You can check tan 185 or 189, 81 or something. Tan 185. Check it. Tan 185. They should give you a positive answer.
Zero point 0874.
It's positive, right?
Yes, sir.
So use cos and sine and see if they will be positive.
These are negative.
Correct. Now the same thing applies to here. Here is cos, so here is cos. So any number, any angle that is more than 270 but less than 360 should give you, when you use cos, it should be positive. But use sine or tan, it will be negative. Check cos 270. Check cos 275. Check cos 275. What do you get?
Zero point 0.0872.
But it is positive, right?
Yes, sir.
Check the other ones. Use the other ratios and let's see if you get positive answers.
So if all of them have negative answers.
There. Check, use this thing, tan 275, tan 275. Check that one. And check sine 275. And let's see.
So all were negative.
Okay, good. So now let's assign some formulas to this. Some formulas to this. Now, you also bear with me that apart from here, you know, when we talk of acute angles, we are saying 0 to 90. But normally acute angles are the angles which are formed with the horizontal. So acute angles are the angles which are formed with the horizontal. Now, let me explain it again. When we say they are angles formed with the horizontal, this means that if I'm to talk about bearing or anything, and maybe a passenger travels from this angle to this point, maybe an angle of maybe from here to here is maybe 120 or something. So the angle here is 120. 120. Now I can also get the corresponding acute angle of the 120. Now how do I get the corresponding acute angle of this 120? I can get the corresponding acute angle of the 120 by subtracting the 120 from 180 from this. So here the angle left here is the acute angle, which is the angle between this one and the horizontal. So here the acute angle here is what? Acute angle here is what? This one will be 180 minus 120 will give you 60. Will give you 60 degrees. So this will be the corresponding acute angle of 120. Now, if I also bring it here, for instance, if the angle was maybe 2 something something, maybe the angle was here. The angle was formed here. I'm not going to consider here because here the angle is formed with the vertical, not the horizontal. So I'm going to consider the angle here. I'm going to consider the angle here. So now, how do I get my corresponding acute angle? Now, to get my corresponding acute angle, if I started from here, and the angle I was given is maybe, or was maybe from here to here is maybe 290. Then that means I should be able to get the acute angle from this 290. That's what it means. I should be able to get acute angle from this 290. From this 290. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 180 from this 290 because you know here is 180. From here to here is 180. And you're saying from here to here is what do you call it? 290 is supposed to be here instead. Let me use 195 instead. So it's 195. Then before I can be able to get the acute angle here, then I'm supposed to subtract 180 from 195. So 195 minus 180. So I know the whole of here is 180. So the corresponding acute angle here will be, what am I getting? Is it 15 or something? Yes, 15. So here will be 15 degrees. Now as time goes on, you will get to understand it better. You will appreciate it better. So that is it. Now, this thing looks a little bit scattered. I erase it and we'll continue. We'll draw some formulas or formulae from this and explain it better. I hope you get it to that point. Good. So let me draw it again. So we can still maintain the or. There's a sign. So we are saying that in the first distance, all the signs should be positive. So we can't even consider any angle there. All the distance will be positive there. So you don't even have to talk about. Now let's talk about the second quadrant. So in the second quadrant, we know that the angle here, which is theta, or let's say the angle P, should be greater. So P should be greater than 0 degrees, but it should be less than 180 degrees. You can even say it should be greater than this. So now, having this, we can now say that since we know that every sine angle here is positive, we can now confidently say that sine, we can have a formula for it, sine into bracket. There's no memorize, just understand it. You don't even need to quote all these things, but I just want you to understand. Sine into bracket 180, I've already explained this, minus P should be equal to sine P. Should we go to sine P? Now, what it means is that, for instance, when you are given sine 120, when they say find sine 120, what is sine 120? Use your calculator. Use your calculator. Let me see. So now we can factor sine 120 here. We can put sine 120 here. So we can say sine. The 120 is the P. Sine into bracket 180.
3/2.
So it will be 180 minus 120. So sine, what are we getting? Sine 120 we had. Sine 120, what do you get, please?
√3/2.
Root 3 all over 2.
√3/2.
Root 3 all over 2. Okay. Now, we are finding its corresponding acute angle. Its corresponding acute angle, using this formula, will be 60. I hope you agree. Now, check sine 62 and see if they are the same. They should be the same.
The same answer.
It's the same answer. So we are just trying to say that now the acute angle of sine 60 is the same as the sine 120 you were given in the question. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
So, just as I explained earlier, if you were to trace the 120, then the 120 will be somewhere around here. It will be the angle from here to here. The 60 will be the one here. So we can use this formula, which is the same as sine P. So this means that cos 180. So if sine 180 minus P is equal to sine P, then that means cos 180, cos 120 will also use the same formula, cos into bracket 180 minus P. But in this case, you are not going to get this thing. You are not going to get positive this new. You are going to get a negative answer. So your answer will be minus cos P. Your answer will be minus cos P. Now you can check. Cos 120 will give you the minus. Cos 60 will also give you minus, and they should be the same answer. So we've been able to get the corresponding acute angles. I hope you get it to this point. Hello, are you getting it to this point? Hello, are you getting to this point? So check cos 120. Check cos 120. Check cos 120.
-half.
Negative half. But now when you come and check, when you come right, if you find its corresponding acute angle, you are supposed to negate the cos. Otherwise, you are going to get a positive answer, because don't forget that its corresponding acute angle is 60, and 60 falls in this quadrant. So if 60 falls in this quadrant, anything you are going to do, you are going to get positive, because all the trig ratios here are positive. So then what you are going to do, the corresponding of cos 120 should give you a minus cos, because we believe that 120 here, it should be negative when you are using cos. It should only be positive when you are using sine. So you want to find its corresponding, what do you call it, acute angle, then it should be negated. So cos 120 should be equal to negative cos 60. So check negative cos 60 and see if you get negative 1.5 or. I hope you are appreciating the class. PSC, I want to hear your voice. Now you can do similar for tan. Tan 2, it will be tan 120. You are going to get a negative answer. But at corresponding acute angle, you should do it negative tan. Because don't forget that the quadrant you are talking about, they are negative, with the exception of sine. It's the same thing we are going to do for this quadrant 2. In the third quadrant 2, P will be greater than 180 but less than 270. That you already know. So here, if I have, for instance, here 2b, in the third quadrant, tan will give you in the third quadrant. Okay, so in the third quadrant, tan is positive. I hope you know tan is positive here. So tan, let's do tan 210. Tan 210, let's do it.
Root 3 over 3.
Is it positive? So here tan P will be, if you are finding its corresponding acute angle, it will be P minus 180 instead. And that should give you, in this case, it should give you negative tan. In this case, you oh. So check tan 210 for me. When you finish, check when we subtract 210 minus 180, what are you getting? We want to find its corresponding acute angle. So the corresponding acute angle, we say the acute angle are normally formed between the line and the horizontal. So we are talking about this side. That is why we subtract the 180 instead from the angle you are given to get its corresponding acute angle. I hope you get it. It should be formed with the horizontal. So it should be formed with the horizontal here. Are we getting it?
Yes.
So do tan 210 for me and let me see. When you finish, do tan
Root 3 over 3.
what? Speak, it's positive, right?
Root 3 over 3.
So now 210 minus 180 is 30. So do tan 32 for me.
Root 3 over 3.
Correct. So that is exactly it. And the same thing also applies to the C here. So if you are also to consider the C,
You said tan P minus 180 is equal to negative tan P.
use tan P. Use tan P. It should be positive. Because tan here is positive, so it should be positive. But the rest should be negative. Because here, the rest doesn't fall in here. The rest are negative here. I hope you're getting me.
Yes, sir.
Now let's check the cos 2. The cos 2 will be the same thing. So here, cos will be the angle P should be greater than 270 but less than 360. So if I'm giving sine, so here will be my cos will be cos. If I have, when I'm giving cos 360, yeah, I should have 360 minus P. The book will write negative cos, but I think it should be positive cos P. So for let's do cos 300. Let's do cos 300. Cos 300. Let's do cos 300. Let's do cos 300.
How?
What are you getting? What are you getting? I got 0.5. I got 0.5. Remind me, I can't hear you.
How?
Okay, so that is it, and it will be the same for when you use other ones. That will be negative. Now let's try some work, some questions. So I'm reading. No, let me just erase it first. Okay, so if one of this thing cuts you this thing so that we sum them up, you do some, you join again so that we finish where we have some 5 minutes. Okay, so if this angle theta is greater or equal to 0 but less than or equal to 90 degrees, and tan theta is equal to 3 all over 4. Find sin theta and cos theta. Find sin theta and cos theta. So let's do this one together. So just looking at this, we've been given tan theta is equal to 3 all over 4. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to draw a triangle. And there's a right angle triangle. So this will be a right angle triangle. Now, after having a right angle triangle, you know tan is toa, which is opposite all over adjacent. So we assume that the 3 will be opposite and the adjacent is 4. So here is, let me see if you are talking about this angle. Here will be 3 and the adjacent will be 4. So now we can be able to use the distances we've been given to find what we call it, the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse will be root of 3 squared plus 4 squared. What are you getting? I'm getting a certain 5. You can use your calculator to do it because 3 squared will give you 3 squared will give you 9, 4 squared will give you 16. So that will give us 25. So root 25 will give us 5. So that is it. So after finding, there's a question says you should find for sin theta. So already we know that sin is what? Sin theta is, what is sin theta? Sin is toa. Sin is so opposite all over hypotenuse. So here our opposite, the opposite of this angle is 3. So we have 3. And our hypotenuse is 5. So this will be sin theta. We've been able to find sin theta. Now then we've been asked to find for cos theta. So cos theta is equal to cos is k, which is adjacent all over hypotenuse. So this adjacent, which is 4, all over hypotenuse, which is 5. I hope you get the solve how it was worked. I hope you get it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, that is it. So if cos p is 3 all over 5, where p is greater than theta or 0 and less than 90, find the value of tan p all over cos p. So the question says you should find, it says cos p is 3 all over 5. So cos p, we are doing another question. Cos p is equal to 3 all over 5. Now cos is k, which is adjacent all over hypotenuse. So here is 3 and here is 5. So what are you getting for here? What are you getting for the opposite? What are you getting for the opposite? I'm getting 4 for the opposite. So here will be 4. There will be 4. So we are getting it. The question says we should find for tan P all over cos P. Now tan P, our tan P here, our tan here is what? Tan is 2 opposite opposite all over hypotenuse. So which is 4 all over 3? 4 all over 3. And tan all over what? Cos. Cos we are going to be 3 all over 5. So what it means is that we should find for 4 all over 3 divided by 3 all over 5. What are you getting? When we turn it like that, we are going to get, I think, when we turn like that, 3 will cancel, 3 will cancel 3. So you are going to get 4 over 5. Unless I'm wrong. Please check it for me. Check it for me. So 4 over 3, all over 3 all over 5. So you are going to get 20 all over 9, right? When we turn it, 5 will go up and it will be left with 3. So we are going to get 5 times 4 all over 3 times 3. We are going to get 20 over 9. So the answer will be 20 all over 9. Do we get it to that point? When I cut, you join again, so that we finish with the inverse of trigonometric ratio. Then we solve some 1 or 2 questions, and at least we've done 1 or 2. The next time we do depression and listen. Angles of elevation and depression. We are going to do that one too. I think we should do trig graph or something.